graced with Doug King's presence, and he's going to talk about hurricane preparedness.
Right, well, should you worry? I wanted to focus on coping, because coping is a lot about attitude. We want to have the tools and the knowledge. Right? What I'd like everyone to pick up from tonight is to have a positive attitude and to have confidence in the information that you're getting so that you can make good decisions well enough ahead of time that things will come out okay, because we will have to cope with hurricanes and find out why.
He keeps moving back and forth. Now, you should leave one. Leave the second one. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, you changed my colors. This is different.
That's what was on the slide.
Buddy, doesn't really matter. Yes, we should worry about hurricanes. 99 times out of 100, they're just kind of a pain in the neck. But every single hurricane that goes by kills at least a few people. Every single one. I don't want any of us to be that person. Okay, so it's pretty serious. Tropical cyclone, yay Latin, but that actually tells us something about the hurricane. We're going to go into more detail about that. Hurricane, actually an Indian word. They knew enough about hurricanes, and hurricanes were impressive enough from the very earliest colonists that we kept the same word. So that's really significant. Why does Fairfield Harbor have so many hurricanes? Well, we actually haven't had any for a few years. So maybe I shouldn't even say that. That doesn't do it, does it? Does that do it? It's not doing it. Okay. There we go. All right. Did we click past one? No, we didn't. Okay, good. Hurricane season's not carved in stone. Officially, we're in hurricane season now. We've had hurricanes as early as April. And we've had hurricanes, 4 hurricanes past Z, on beyond zebra. Anyone remember that? And that was in the second week of December. So hurricanes, they say, I think they say every year we're going to have an above average hurricane season. But on average, 12 hurricanes a year, and they cost us a lot of money on average. The big ones cost more than any given year's average, as you can see. Hurricanes also happen in the southern hemisphere, in the Pacific. In the Pacific, they're called typhoons, but it's the exact same thing. In the Pacific, there's a few more on average, and they're stronger because the Pacific is bigger. So we have something to be thankful for, at least. Someone was asking me about what does modern weather forecasting mean? In the era of modern weather forecasting, that's when we first started to put together the mechanics of how hurricanes really work. And by modern weather forecasting, what I mean is a whole nationwide network of guys, the railway station masters, were given barometers and wind instruments, and they would telegraph in to the central office what the wind was, whether it was raining or not, and what the barometric pressure was. And some guy would plot this all out on a great big map, and they could see weather systems for the first time. And so they could start to see what was happening and where it was moving to, and say, hey, you know what, maybe we can see something about what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. Been at it ever since, and getting better all the time. As far as hurricanes themselves go, flooding is the bigger problem. So we talked about a tropical cyclone, warming and spinning. Hurricanes form over warm water. The power source, the fuel, is the hot water of the ocean and the temperature difference between the cold upper atmosphere. Anybody here ever connected jumper cables wrong? Starting a car? We'll see exactly how that works. Okay? Anybody ever heard the phrase tropical wave? That's how it all begins. So when you hear a weather forecaster use the word tropical wave, your ears should perk up, because that's something we have to start paying attention to. Hurricanes follow predictable tracks. First of all, hurricanes are huge and they're extremely heavy. They've got many cubic miles of water, and of course water is very heavy. And also it's spinning, so it has its own gyroscopic effect. Okay? They're also steered by the Earth's Coriolis effect, upper atmosphere winds, jet stream, so we want to know about that. Higher low pressure systems in the region that they're moving into, so if we've got a big high pressure center over us, that's great, because that's going to steer that hurricane away, we hope. And here's what I mean. Hurricanes follow a predictable track. They start in warm water band in the tropics. Because the Earth is spinning, they start out with a westward track, almost exactly due west, almost all of them. They then curve to the north. Okay? In the Pacific, you see the exact same thing. Below the equator, you see a mirror image of the same thing. So this is what I mean when I say they follow predictable tracks, consistent tracks. Warm water, 80 degrees by April nowadays. The Gulf of Mexico is often above 80 degrees. Sometimes it doesn't even get cooler than that in the winter nowadays.
Gulf of America.
We're getting 100-degree temperatures off South Florida now coming into the Gulf Stream. So that's quite warm water. We just saw a map, classic track for North Atlantic hurricanes. However, we'll get a better look later. Sometimes we get pop-up hurricanes close by, right in the Gulf Stream off the coast of South Carolina. And those hurricanes are only 2 or 3 days away, so they can be a bit of a problem. It can still build up to Category 2 or 3 storms, though. So we have to think about that. Hurricanes build up in stages. We'll see how that happens. Here's a closer look at our classic hurricane track. In what I call Hurricane Alley here, east of the Caribbean, they start out moving westward, they curve to the north. We've got the warm Gulf Stream water here. And here are we in eastern North Carolina sticking out like a great big catcher's mitt. That is why, first of all, the weather patterns that come with the rest of this when we don't have hurricanes is why this is such a nice place to be and such a nice place for sailing. But it also means we're right here sticking out right in the way of all those hurricanes that are making their classic path here. Now, when I talked about the building up over the Gulf Stream, this region here, a lot of times a low pressure cell will build into a hurricane, and it's only 2 or 3 days away. When they're down here, we got a week's warning. And that's one of the good things. If we lived next to a volcano, we wouldn't get that much warning. So, tropical wave. Tropical wave is just low pressure over warm water. It starts an updraft. Okay, and that updraft is going to be quite wet. It's going to carry a huge amount of humidity with it. And of course, low pressure is going to start to affect the wind. And if that warm water makes the low pressure continue to build and get lower and lower, the wind will start to curve, and it'll be actually a low pressure cell with a closed isobar around it. So the wind is going to form a circular pattern coming in from all directions. At this point, they'll start tracking it. At this point, once it becomes a tropical depression, a lot of times they'll give it a name as well. The Coriolis effect, I mentioned, this is why hurricanes spin. The southern edge of the low pressure area has got the Earth moving faster because it's moving faster closer to the equator. So this air right here is getting dragged along with the Earth, and it's got to go this way. And then, because it's pushing the air all the way around, the air on the north side has to hook also. This also accelerates the effect of the hurricane itself. But you can see how the Earth spinning is going to pull those hurricanes to the north because it's a shorter distance. But that's also how they acquire spin in the first place. And what you'll hear is the weather forecasters will start to talk about organizing. The cell wall will start to form, it will get organized. They call it acquiring organization, kind of a funny phrase, but in any event, what that means is it's now got a circular pattern. Now, a straight line is the shortest path, right? So if this wind has to curve, it's spending more time over that warm water. It's picking up more heat. It's picking up more moisture. So that's pumping even more energy into that column of warm air rising in the center. Our warm updraft is now warmer, faster, and wetter. And the more this air has to circle around to get into it, the stronger it's going to get. So it's got its own sort of self-accelerating trend here. And we'll quickly build into a hurricane, the real deal. So here it is, a fully constructed hurricane. It's like a 600-mile donut of air that is saturated with way more water than it can carry. The most dense rain you can possibly imagine. It's really like the ocean has been pulled up into the sky. If you haven't experienced hurricane rains, it's hard to believe sometimes. our central column, this is the eye of the hurricane. It's a column of quite warm air, and it really is calm because the air is going straight up. When I lived in Florida, I was out in an open field in central Florida when a hurricane eye passed overhead, and we all went outside because it had stopped raining, which was a novelty because it had been raining hard for days, and you could see the stars. It was that calm, no clouds, a nice circle of clear sky. But this can be as much as 800 miles across. It's huge, and it's got the momentum, it's got the gyroscope effect. Another thing that I think I think we've mentioned, hurricanes will spit out tornadoes and thunderstorms at almost every stage of development. So even a minor tropical depression can pull some dangerous weather your way. It's worthwhile knowing that they're coming. It's worthwhile preparing for them. People focus on wind strength. That's the biggest, baddest thing is super strong winds. The physics of it are a 100-mile-an-hour wind, because velocity is squared in the equation of force. A 100-mile-an-hour wind is 4 times as strong as a 50-mile-an-hour wind, not twice as strong. So when you've got hurricanes that can kick out 150-mile-an-hour winds plus, that can pick up and throw cars through the air. Category 1 hurricane still is not fooling. But there's more to it than just wind strength. We want to know category 1, 2, 3, 4, blah, 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 catastrophic damage, extremely dangerous, catastrophic damage, yeah. Well, duh. And this is why people sometimes don't pay that much attention to weather forecast, because it sounds like they're really trying to be Chicken Little, and they say the same thing over and over and over and over. When will a weather forecaster ever tell you, no, this is not going to be a dangerous storm? Well, some of them aren't going to be that bad. But first of all, they can't tell you that because it's liability in our modern world, right? And second of all, if it's like the Weather Channel, they get rated. The more hysterical they try to be, the more ratings they get. So, and this is why I say avoid all this. We had let me get back on track here. Sorry. We talked about wind strength. The other major factor in hurricane strength is barometric pressure. The lower the central pressure, the stronger that storm is going to be. There's not a direct correlation to wind strength. Usually lower central pressure means stronger wind. Category 5 hurricane will have a very low central pressure. But, for example, look at Sandy. Everybody remember Sandy? Sandy wasn't even a hurricane when it hit New Jersey, but it had a central pressure of 940, almost the same as Florence, and it tore up New Jersey and Long Island real bad. That was a very powerful storm. So you're going to want to keep an eye on the central pressure of a hurricane. What that really means for us here, we're 25 to 30 miles back from the coast. We want to know how strong is that storm going to be by the time it gets to us. The lower the central pressure, the stronger that storm will be as it travels over land. It's going to maintain its strength with lower central pressure. Okay, so now we've seen the machine in action, how it all works. How good are they at telling where it's going to go? This doesn't look too good, does it? 150 miles? Well, I got two things to say about that. One is they've been getting better, and this is kind of a cynical and negativistic view of hurricane forecasting. 150-mile track, difference between where they say the eye is going to go and where it really goes. Well, one thing is, if you're within 150 miles of the eye of a hurricane, you're in a hurricane. So that's actually not too bad. The second thing is, that exaggerates how bad they are at it. This is ancient history. In 2003, Hurricane Isabel, we were actually out cruising when Hurricane Isabel went by, so it stuck in my mind. But this is a once every 24-hour time-lapse shot of the eye of Isabel. You can see it getting organized here. This is when it's forming, tropical depression, strong eye wall. Here you see it go up, okay? And you can see it follows pretty much the classic path, moves east, hooks north, head for Cape Hatteras, just like they all do. Here's the 4-day track when we got our warning that yes, it was in fact coming here. It's right on the money. They nailed it, like a laser-sighted rifle. Hurricane Isabel was a pretty bad storm for its day. 6 million people without power, affected 6 million people without power. Sorry. Rainfall from the storm hit South Carolina to Maine and Michigan. So that covered a big area. Let's jump forward to Florence. Florence was one of the more erratic storms. I've been tracking hurricanes for a long, long, long time. Back in the days when you got a thing like a placemat with latitude and longitude on it, and you hear on the radio the latitude and longitude, the eye of the storm, track it day by day. I did that several times a year for a long time. Now it's much easier. You just get this map here. This is not a forecast you would worry about, okay? Yes, it's a full-fledged hurricane. You can see sustained wind 105 miles an hour. It's Category 2 hurricane, in fact. Its track looks like it's headed to the east of Bermuda. That's not going to come to us. We're not worried about this, right? Okay? Oh, I forgot to mention. When you're looking at a prediction like this, what this ice cream cone means is NOAA is saying they believe there's an 85% chance the track of the eye of this storm will stay in that cone. 85% of the time, given the conditions that they're all measuring, that it's going to stay in that cone. Okay? So that's what they mean by predictable. There's very, very few storms that I've tracked where the eye moves out. Ian is another one where it moves very, very slightly out of the cone. Okay? So here, you see the very next day, that last one was Friday, very next day, this is shifted to the south. Now it's headed west of Bermuda. Now it looks like we could have a problem. Did it move out of the cone? Not really. It moved sort of to the southern edge of the cone. This is one of the things you want to watch. During hurricane season, I strongly recommend you check the NOAA forecast once a day. Just a quick look at what this map shows. Later on, I'll show you what it said this morning, which is nothing. Everybody's glad to hear that part, right? Okay, so here's our ice cream cone again. This part of the track is right on the edge of the prior day's cone. If you look at the latitude and longitude line, you can see this is still right here where it is. So I don't know, maybe a referee would say, yeah, no, that's still in the cone, maybe outside. But here we definitely have a problem. That's headed right for Charleston. And we're within the cone that it could go to. Okay, so this is Saturday. We know from history that it hit on Friday morning. So we've got a week's warning here. At this point, you should start making hurricane preparations. You got a week's warning. And this is a maximum sustained wind 65. It's actually lost its strength. And there's something missing from this NOAA forecast. They don't tell you the central pressure. So one of the things NOAA does is it's done by scientists. They give you some key information, but they want you to go to a different page to get another piece of key information. They can't bring it all together for you, unfortunately. In any event, so this is our forecast for Florence. Track continues. Once again, it's kind of at the southern edge, but it's starting to curve a little bit. Now, I've been looking at this and thinking, maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe it'll keep curving to the north and miss us, because a lot of them do. This is Monday morning. They're predicting it's going to hit Wilmington early Friday morning. Now remember, everyone said Florence wobbled around, went this way, went that way, stopped, spun in place, etc., etc. Okay, Tuesday, same thing, still in its cone. The track has shifted slightly north again. Now here's where I would really start to worry, because this eye going just south of us puts us in the most dangerous quadrant of that storm. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I'll show you exactly what that means. One of the things you want to look at is what the track is and where the eye is going to go relative to you. If that eye is going to go slightly south, slightly west of you, that's the worst thing you can have happen. So you can see Florence, one of the storms that they said was the hardest to predict, has actually been pretty predictable so far. Now here it does something weird. We saw that it started to hook to the south, and hurricanes almost never do that. Here it's very definitely hooking to the south, and it's also going slower. Why is that bad? More rain, more time. One of the worst things about Florence is the track it approached us from, straight in like this, it put winds from the northeast right over Pamlico Sound. And we'll take a close look at why that's really bad. This has given us 4 days in a row of hurricane strength winds over Pamlico Sound. And that's a big reason why we had so much water here. So this is acting kind of unusual, but look, still going to hit Wilmington Friday morning. So if you started preparing, like I did on Monday, you were not wasting your time in Hurricane Florence. In fact, Hurricane Florence is the only hurricane in my time dealing with hurricanes that I ever evacuated. and we were out of here by Wednesday. But we put in 2.5 full days of work on house and boat before then. So now, landfall, all the bad stuff is happening. It almost doesn't matter where the storm goes from here. So that was Florence. We don't really need to know what the names of storms are. They've already picked the names. If you're interested, you can go look what the names of hurricanes will be this year. Florence has been retired. Katrina's been retired. Mitch, anyone remember Hurricane Mitch? That hit Central America. I was in the Navy when Mitch hit, and that was a life experience. Hazel was a long time ago, but it's still memorable. The power of hurricanes, people have said it's more powerful than an atom bomb. That's true. More powerful than all the lights in New York City. That's easily true. In fact, it's more powerful than the world's entire electrical grid, several hundred times over. So let's pretend there's a hurricane coming and think about what it means for us, what the forecast means for us, and what we're going to do. We've got a Category 4 storm that's obviously been building for some time down here right in Hurricane Alley. It's following the classic path. This one is predicted to head east of Hatteras. So we're not even in the cone, really. Is this going to hurt us real badly? Not too bad. It is going to bring hurricane force winds over Pamlico Sound once again. So that's going to bring us some high water. That's going to bring us a storm surge. Its central pressure is quite low. So what we're going to look out for over the next couple of days is look for that track to shift to the west. If we see this hurricane cone shifting more towards us, we need to think about how bad it could be, because it could be bad. Well, the main thing we're going to do is take our time to prioritize wisely. Sit down. How long have you got to prepare? Usually you've got several days to prepare. Think about how you're going to prepare your home. Think about what you want to do with your boat. And as always, remember to put on your own oxygen mask first. Your own safety, and your family's safety, of course, is the main priority, because somebody is going to get killed in this hurricane. Don't let it be you. Okay? Prepare for electricity to go off. Prepare for a loss of water. Get some jerry jugs of water stored out. Prepare to be stuck. If you're going to stay in your house, prepare for the roads to be blocked. Prepare for high water. Get stuff off the low floor of your garage. Think about moving your car to high ground. With the boat, the best thing to do with your boat is do a haul out. Don't call the boatyard to try to get your boat hauled out the day before a hurricane is going to hit. With a week's warning, you need to do it the next day you decide you got to do it. On Florence, our boat went to the boatyard Monday morning. And we were lucky because we got there early and they put us in the back corner of the boatyard, well above the water. We had a boat that floated off its stands underneath our boat on its side. Yeah. I didn't put pictures of that in here, maybe I should have. So, since this is a yacht club, let's talk about boats just a little bit. Anchoring out is a whole separate lecture. That could be, it can be done safely. It takes the right equipment, and it takes applying that equipment in the right way. So that's a lecture all in itself. Hauling out, anchoring out are the two best things. Don't ever, ever ride out a hurricane. Leaving your boat moored to the dock is the worst thing you can do, but if the storm is going to be very strong. If the storm's not that strong, I've done it. I've left our boat at our dock through a tropical storm. Category 1, I would have to think about it, depending on where the eye was and what the storm surge was going to be. And here's why. If you're on your boat, can you do anything to help yourself even in a situation like this? Yeah, don't ever do that. If you've got any option to not do it. Yeah, I mean, really. That was Hurricane Isabel, by the way. So back to our forecast. This eye is going well to the east of us, so we're in the safer quadrant of this storm. This one would not make me want to make the maximum preparations from here, but I'd certainly be keeping my eye on it, and I would get ready early, because if you do have to make maximum preparations, you want to already be halfway there. Right? We talked about how the upper right quadrant is the most dangerous. Here's why. When you're between 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock to that hurricane, 12 o'clock is the direction it's going. Okay? If it's moving this way, 12 o'clock here. This one's moving to the northeast, just like Florence did. If you're in here, the speed of the storm is added to the speed of the wind. So this is going to have the highest storm surge. This is going to have the strongest wind. The rain's going to hit the hardest. It's got the greatest chance of tornadoes because of the difference in wind speed between the upper atmosphere and the surface. Right in here, you don't want the eye of the hurricane going right west of you. That's when you have to prepare for the worst. Storm surge. Remember we talked about low central pressure? The lower the central pressure, the higher this hump of water is going to be that the hurricane's bringing along with it, because the low air pressure pulls that water upward. Okay? And as it gets into shallow water, all that water is going to pile up on top of itself. So NOAA actually has a pretty good way of figuring this all out. Their maps, though, are a little bit hard to realize. This is their sample map. If you go to their website and they're not giving you an active storm surge prediction, you can look at this and try and figure out what it means. What they're trying to tell you is they got the map. If you're at this location, blue means 3 foot deep water. Okay, does that mean 3 feet of storm surge? You think, okay, great, well, I'm way more than 3 feet above the water. No, what they're trying to tell you is there's going to be 3 foot deep water here where you're standing. Red, 9 foot deep water here if you're standing in this area. So this map is a little hard to figure out. The first time I saw one, I did not read it correctly. I don't think they will have changed. But when they're predicting storm surge for North Carolina, they've got one thing, we've got one thing going against us, but it also makes it easy to predict. I talked about northeast winds over Pamlico Sound. This is 75 miles of water here, 30 miles wide at the narrow spot. So when wind is coming from the northeast, it's pushing all that water right down into the funnel of the Neuse River. So all this water here is trying to cram into this narrow spot and pile up here. So when we get hurricane force winds over Pamlico Sound, that brings a lot of water. When we've got it for 4 days straight, 5 days, and we're getting a storm surge bringing more water in all the time, all that water is going right to us. Now, this is all shallow water, so as the storm surge comes in from the southeast, all that hump of water is going to get pushed up on these beaches. By the way, the 3-day storm surge prediction, 3 days before landfall, NOAA was saying that Florence was going to hit Morehead City with a 20-foot storm surge. And that is what made up my mind that we would evacuate. Florence was predicted to be a Katrina-level event for the North Carolina coast. And I was amazed. One reason I want to give this talk is I was amazed at how many people sort of knew there was a hurricane coming maybe, but the weather people always exaggerate that kind of stuff, you know? I was amazed at how many people didn't know when. I was amazed at how many people heard the prediction of a 10-foot storm surge, which means waist-deep water on Pelican Drive. And that's never going to happen. Come on, get real here, right? Well, they were getting real. This is one of the NOAA maps that you pull up when you look at your prediction. Remember I said they separate things out? So this is from Florence. This is the time at which you're going to begin experiencing hurricane force winds. So this is the prediction from Monday morning. Remember we said it was going to hit Wilmington Friday? Wednesday morning is when we're going to start experiencing hurricane force winds on Pamlico Sound. So that's a fairly useful prediction. The earliest reasonable arrival time of tropical storm force winds. That's a pretty straightforward explanation, isn't it? You saw that on their website. You could figure out what you're clicking on. This is not from NOAA. I'm not sure who generated this map. I found it on the PBS website. I could not find the historical map from NOAA's storm surge prediction for Florence. But NOAA was predicting 12-foot storm surge at Newport. And you can see these folks are predicting 10-foot plus, right? The dark maroon color we're getting. This is a little hard to read because they're trying to both show the river and they're trying to show where land is going to be flooded. So this is Northwest Creek and Broad Creek. This is the Trent River and Bryce's Creek. Bryce's Creek doesn't show like that on the map, unless it's way over its banks, right? But they're showing 10-foot plus storm surge, almost all the way to Kinston. Now what they don't show, this map stops right here, what they don't show is there was a lot of flooding out here in Jones County and Lenore County. Trenton had 6 and 7 foot water in people's yards. And you can also see the beach effect, the shallow water effect of that storm surge coming up onto the shelf here at Cape Lookout and at Onslow Beach, coming up to Jacksonville. So I thought this was quite a good map that I was showing to you. Paradox of hurricane preparation. There can be a storm that you can't really prepare for. There could be a storm so strong it's simply going to wipe everything Years and years ago, I had friends with a beach house down at Topsail. Back then, most shore construction along the shore was cinder block and flat roofs because they felt that would endure through the worst storms. Well, it didn't endure through one. They couldn't even find the road where the house was. But they put it all back. And I don't know, has anybody been to Topsail recently? In any event, what you want to do is, since a hurricane will always leave a big mess to clean up, it's always going to be some work. And we're always going to have hurricanes, right? Remember, we're sticking out right in Hurricane Alley. Put your work in preparation and have less work in repair. It's a lot easier to prepare than it is to rebuild. Start from the high ground of having a good battery in your boat so that when its shore power goes off, your bilge pump will keep running for a while. Have good dock lines. Start with your home preparation of having a ditch bag with your most important papers, your week's worth of prescriptions. Important papers. When there's a disaster area, if you left, a lot of times the National Guard will let you back in unless you can prove that you belong here. And sometimes not even then, but usually they will. If you've got your deed or your 2 recent electric bills or something to prove that, yes, you really do live here. Once again, haul out your boat, anchor out if you know how and you've got the right equipment. Leaving your boat docked for a mild storm, not a problem. But as we have seen, for a major storm, don't do it. Just don't do it. Accidents. How do you prepare for accidents? First of all, be confident in what you're doing. Don't be rushed. Don't feel pressured. Don't fall down the stairs carrying a can of gas because you're in a big hurry to get your generator going. Don't electrocute yourself with don't leave your generator running in a closed space. You'd be amazed how many people do that. Some things, the emergency guy, Stanley Pegg, our emergency director for the county, gave a very good talk a couple of days ago. One of the key pieces of information he gave us is that when the winds exceed 50 miles an hour, they don't send out emergency crews because if they have to cross the bridge, they have a very hard time. If they wreck one of those emergency vehicles, there ain't no emergency service no more. So they can't risk it. If you're going to have an emergency that you've got to call for help, have it when the wind is below 50 miles an hour. But just know that's going to happen, right? Either be somewhere else or be self-reliant. And that's what we're working towards, is to try to make good decisions, try to figure out what's going to happen next and be prepared for it so that you can cope and not be all stressed, worried, hurried, so that you're more likely to have an accident. Here is this morning's National Hurricane Center webpage. There isn't anything out there right now, which is very good news. But what you'll see is the links for the Atlantic. We're looking at the Atlantic, obviously. They've got a link for the Pacific, Central Pacific. Up there at the top, I don't know if you can see it, they've got another set of links. Analysis and forecasts is where you want to go, because that will pull down a list of forecasts, including storm surge. They don't give a storm surge forecast until 3 days before landfall. Yeah, 3 days before landfall. They'll start to put out a storm surge. But they will have, they'll have a tropical wave plotted. If they got one, they'll have a tropical depression plotted. If they got one, they'll have the cone with its track. So you can see all that and see if there's something else you need to learn. This is another sample. This is another map from Hurricane Florence. I don't find this particularly useful. This is the wind map of where tropical storm force winds are probable. The dark purple is 90%. Well, they might as well say 100%, right? Because it was a Category 3 storm at this point. But this is the region where they expect tropical force winds. Sorry. Did that. There we go. Okay. So this is what happens when you pull down the analysis and forecast. What we have here is a sample list of the maps that are available. So you've got the forecast cone, wind speed probabilities, that was what we were just looking at, the wind field, wind history, arrival time of tropical storm force. We saw the map of arrival arrival time of hurricane force winds. Down here we have storm surge, rainfall. Florence brought 30 inches of rainfall to central North Carolina. But NOAA called it. They said that was going to happen. So, you know, they're really on the job. So this is what you're looking at when you go to the NOAA website itself. And I feel like going to the source. All the other weather forecasters get their data from NOAA. And you can get the data as well. So what you gotta sort of find your way through their maze of information that they're trying to give you, because they're scientists. They like their information packaged one bit at a time. That's the way scientists work. So where you could have 2 maps to give you everything you need to know, they like to have 12. But that's okay. So what we're going to look for, we're all going to look at the NOAA forecast. We're going to look for not only where the storm track is, but where the track is shifting. We want to know, is it tending to go to the east or the west? Where is that eye going to go relative to us? Okay? Because we want to know, are we going to be in the most dangerous quadrant, that northeast quadrant? Right? You want to check the central pressure and see how low it is. And is it getting deeper day by day? Is that storm getting stronger? Is it going to stay a super strong storm as it comes over land to hit us? As soon as it's available, check storm surge. Although, if you can see the track of that storm and you know it's going to put northeast hurricane winds over Pamlico Sound, you know it's going to bring our water level up. Probably a lot. On the other hand, we've had hurricanes where their track put winds from the west over Pamlico Sound and it sucked the water out. That was kind of unusual. That happened a couple of years ago. We had water drop by 3 feet as a hurricane went by. And it was also interesting to see what forecasters called that right. Storm surge. I haven't talked about rainfall flooding. Because it's so flat here, we've got a problem with standing water, but we don't really have a problem with rain causing floods like they do up in Kinston and further west from there. Because we don't have all the water from a large area coming in together into our stream bed and then rushing through. However, what can happen is that all that rain collects in the Neuse River, starts coming down. It takes a couple of days to get down here. So when our storm surge goes out, that water starts getting here. So our water can stay high, not at full storm surge height, but it can stay a couple feet high for several days, even way down here where the river is so wide. So to wrap it up, get your warnings well in advance, have your plan, be wary of accidents, because that's the most likely thing. That's the most harmful thing. Don't drive over flooded roads. That's another thing that Mr. Stanley Kite talked about. He showed a picture of a road that had washed out. So there's no road there. There's a 15-foot deep gully where that road used to be. But when the water's over that road, you can't see. It might look like, oh, I've got a foot of water over this road. My car can go through that. Well, that's great until you hit that gully where it washed out. Don't drive over flooded roads. He told a story, and I don't know how this guy could have avoided it. The guy fell in floodwater. He was wading around in his yard, fell, ingested water, of course. He got a lung infection and died several days later in the hospital. Well, don't fall in floodwaters, but one lesson from that is that floodwater, hurricane floods, bring a kind of a toxic devil's brew. He mentioned we have a industrial chemical plant over in Bridgeton, and during one tropical storm that went by, they had 2,000 pounds of industrial cyanide on their shelves. Fortunately, it was packaged in the way that it should have been, and it wasn't a problem. But it just lets you know, yeah, that water is really not safe to drink. But there's one point I'd like to mention. When FEMA was here for Florence, one of the things that I had done that they said, oh, we're going to write that into the book. I had taken all my engine oil, paint, solvents, pesticide, herbicide, my garden chemicals and stuff, put them all in a trash bag. Put them on a high shelf? Yes. If you put them in a trash bag and seal up that trash bag and then put it on a high shelf, two things are going to happen. One is, if that high shelf gets knocked over, as is likely to happen, almost everybody's garage got jumbled around, all that stuff is not going to join that toxic mix. So you're not going to be wading in it, and it's not going to get painted all over the bottom of your house. And second of all, you'll still have it when it's done. And if everybody does that, then that will really reduce the toxicity of what's in our floodwater. Animal encounters. Snakes are looking for high ground in a hurricane too. You wouldn't believe the number of stories I've already heard. Stanley Kite talked about a few more stories of snakes, raccoons, you name it, coming into your house because they think it's a nice safe place to come in a storm. And we talked about tornadoes, thunderstorms. You want to have some preparations made, and you want to know what you're going to do if you've got to do things quickly, because a tornado is not going to give that much warning. That can happen at any stage of a hurricane going by. So, one thing I can tell you for sure, we will have a hurricane here. It's part of where we are. I can't tell you when, and I can't tell you how bad it's going to be, but I hope that now you all feel that you'll be a little more confident when you're getting the forecast, and you know what's going to happen next, and you can prepare for it properly.
Before you go, we're talking about places to find data, and
Yes.
on the NOAA, I have not found a place for a good spaghetti chart. Do you know how to get, I don't use Mike's weather page, but is there a place on NOAA to find the spaghetti charts?
Yes, they usually have, can I back up a bunch of slides here?
Can you turn it closer? The far right side.
When you go here up to analysis and forecast,
Turn it on, yeah.
next to that, data and tools. Among the data that you can get is a bunch of different models. I don't think that they'll show a bunch of models mixed as a spaghetti chart, but you can look at the European model, you can look at, I forget the name of all of them, but there's at least 5 different models that you can select, and there'll usually be one per map. So they don't give you the whole thing nice and neatly like Mike's weather page probably does. Weather Underground. Wonderground will also give you a spaghetti chart, and that's a good one. I like Wonderground.
Any other questions?
Sure.
Yes.
You were talking about pressures, and there's a website where you can see the pressures,
Yes.
but I don't have a scientific background. When I look at AccuWeather, it's telling me that pressure is 30.08 inches.
Inches. Yes.
I don't know what that means compared to what you presented in terms of the.
Yes, I put it in millibars. A lot of weather forecasts. You can get a chart that compares the two. 30 inches is higher pressure than normal atmospheric average. 20, 15. By the time you get below 14, you're looking at pretty low central pressure. It drops. I would have to draw up a chart to really compare it.
Oh,
That's
okay.
pretty straightforward.
Okay. Well, the millibars, that's above ground, way above ground too, right? It's not
Yes.
at sea surface.
No, that's at the sea surface.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Question?
Yeah, what about using apps like Windy or Predictly, where it kind of presents the picture in a way that's a little bit more digestible?
I like Windy, but I don't use it for hurricane predictions. Windy's great for telling what the wind's going to shift to tomorrow if you've got a low going or a high going by. You can see hurricanes forming on Windy. Maybe if you're looking at Windy and you see something forming, then go to. I like, and remember, Windy gets their information from NOAA,
Of course, yeah.
so get it from the horse's mouth. This is my best advice. Yes, sir.
Is there any concern with the budget cuts and rescissions that NOAA is going to be short-handed?
Yes, yes. What NOAA normally does in hurricane season is they'll move a bunch of people from their other services to the National Hurricane Center. I don't think they're able to do much of that this year. The other thing that's their major impact is they've had to just completely stop about 22 major scientific projects. For example, the offshore buoys, the autonomous drones the floating drones that they have that collect ocean data. That's done. They're not doing that. They can't afford that anymore. And their balloon program. Has anybody here been down to the Newport station? The Yacht Club does a trip down to. We actually have helped them launch a balloon. It's kind of fun. Balloon program is how they study the jet stream and upper atmosphere winds, and that has a very strong effect on where hurricanes go. That has been, the last I heard is it's cut. I think that that will have to be one of the things they restore because it's such a huge component. But we've already had weather problems in the Midwest that could have been predicted better. So I'm hoping they'll bring that back.
Just a recommendation, can we put the nhc.noaa.gov link on the semaphore or the website or something for our yacht club?
Sure, we can do that.
I think that would be great.
Here's a practical suggestion from one of my relatives who's been through a lot of hurricanes in Texas. And that is, if you're going to leave your home, or if you're not going to leave your home, if you're going to lose electricity, or you're worried about losing electricity, take a garbage bag and put everything in your freezer in the garbage bag, so that when you come back, if you've got all this melted good, you've got it in the garbage bag, and you can carry it out instead of having it spill all over your floors.
Is that a technical term here?
That's nice. And then also, you're going to be worried about being on a diet after hurricane, so all your food's in the garbage bag. You're going to like, no.
Last question.
It's not a question, it's more of a comment. In Florence, it was the first time that Craven County issued an evacuation order. And many of our friends were like, oh yeah, we've been through hurricanes every year, 5 or 6 at a time. You know, you don't need to go anywhere. We kind of waited until, I don't want to say the last minute, but it was close to the last minute before we evacuated. And
I forced him.
Our neighbors both stayed, and when we came back, both of them were, we'll never do that again. If they say get out, that's a real serious, just a very serious warning, and you should take heed of it if you can.
Craven County says get out.
Get out.
Absolutely get out. But you should have already been thinking about it anyway.
Okay, we'll stop now, but we'll be around for a while. We have some refreshments and stuff. If Doug hangs around, you can nail him back there. He's helping with refreshments.